Hello everyone, I thought I'd just do a quick video on Lightroom. Now, not the full bifter, the whole workflow and every facet of the program. There are so many good videos out there, I certainly couldn't better. So what I thought I'd do is just give an idea of my 5 favourite functions of Lightroom. Perhaps some of them are lesser known ones, so they might be of interest to you. So the first one, it concerns smart collections. I use smart collections quite a lot, but I actually find the basic functionality is quite restricted. And I'll just go through a demo of why and what you can do about it. So I've got this these collections and smart collections set up, and what they're doing here is just basically referring to a folder up here with 18 folders in at the moment, and then there's a review cycle as part of the workflow. So in order to display these, there's a series of smart collections with certain rules and conditions that apply to make these show up. So at the moment we've got all 18 showing up. So as it's a first review, you might very well have a workflow that just clicks on a single star to indicate that it's part of the first review. And you might actually also have a workflow that could include flags as well. Now, this is just for demo purposes. I'm not saying this is a good workflow, far from it. It's just really to show you the functionality. So we go into Review 1, edit the Smart Collection. You'll see at the moment the conditional logic here is if it's in the folder processing now, it'll show, and that's just referring to processing now up here. And as you see, 18. So in normal circumstances, I think everyone knows you just press the button here and you get another logical condition that you can set up. So you can say it's greater than 1 star. So you see all your pictures now greater than 1 star are now shown, and these are the 2 that we clicked just a minute ago. But what you're missing is, in this instance, you've got a flag as well, which you'd want to actually include in the review stage. So if you go back in and edit the Smart Collection, and go in plus, and instead of the rating, you've got pick flag is flagged. Now what this is asking for is all of these conditions have to be met. So in other words, it has to be in processing now, it has to have 1 star, and it has to be flagged. And if we actually set save, probably none of these will have all of those conditions met. You have some options up here where you can say any, which means that it'll look for anything that's got any one of these is true, and that's not what you want either, or none, and you don't want that also. So how would you go about it? Well, there is actually a hidden functionality in Smart Collections. I'll just show you now. So you have your basic high-level one that if it's true that it's in this folder, then that's what we want. If you press Alt on the PC or Option on the Mac, you'll notice this plus becomes a hash. If you click that, you've suddenly got another layer of conditional logic, which comes under a new box here. Any of the following are true, all, or none. But it's really the power of it is the any. So now we got folder contains processing now, yes. Rating greater than 1, but you wanted the flag as well, so you just had the plus, and big flag is flagged. You've now got must be true, or that could be true, or that could be true. You press save, and here we've got our single stars, but we've also now included the flag. So that's just a very brief example of how you can increase the logic, the complexity of the logic, and increases your choice. In my view, it extends the capabilities of Smart Collections quite considerably. The second function that I use quite regularly involves stacking. I'm assuming everyone knows what stacking is, but if not, if I select everything in this folder and I come up here to photo, you'll see an option here for stacking, and you get another menu. Alternatively, you can just right click and you get the same stacking options. And here you can say you can group photos into stack, which basically just piles one on top. It's a bit like a subfolder, and you can unstack, basically collapse and expand all stacks. Now, I don't find this day to day that useful, but what I do find it very handy for is HDR. So if you go out and do a shoot with a number of HDR sequences, it's quite handy to be, when it comes to processing, is to group these together. And there is actually a little handy little function of this stacking that allows that, and that's auto stack by capture time down here. So if you click on that, you'll see a slider here where you can determine the time that it will look at the metadata of all the photos that you've selected. So here I've got 5 seconds. It's identified that there's 10 potential stacks that were taken within 5 seconds, within the 5 second period, which, could be reasonable. It's not reasonable for proper HDR, because usually you'll shoot those through in a couple of seconds, 3 or 5 frames. But for my Sony, it's quite natural to be 5 seconds or even 6 seconds. So here it's identified 13 sets of HDR photos. Maybe just click on stack, and it'll stack those 13. I tend to just come in here and just collapse all stacks just for the demo purposes. So if you start coming down through the folder, you'll start seeing these stacking symbols at the top left here. And here it's stacked 5 photos, which happen to be 5 HDR shots. And the same here. Some of them, so like here there's only 2 here, but they were taken for a luminosity blend instead of the HDR. But you get the picture. Here's another one. It's a very handy tip for those into HDR. Well, this third one involves introducing some vibrance and color into your image. As you probably all know, you can come down here and looking at this image here, which is relatively flat, is try and increase the vibrance. But on this one here, it takes very little before it becomes a bit overcooked for me. So this would be one of the times that I would look to come down to camera calibration. And again, I'm assuming people are aware of the profile that you can change, so that you can change it depending on your camera. This will vary, but again, you can change the profiles. Say like the landscape, and again, that's overcooked it for me. What I tend to do is leave it on Adobe Standard and just see how it works. But if you come down here to the blue primary, the saturation, the very last slider, and just move it to the right. And for me, that's a lot more subtle, and it's probably all the color modification that I would do in an image. So I think it's always worth coming down to see how your image will be affected by this. It's a very quick way of actually completing your color processing. I should warn you that obviously if there's a lot of blue in the image, then that may overcoat the blues. But still, it's quite a handy little hint, worth trying if the situation's right. This fourth one concerns a function that I certainly underutilize, and I suspect many other people do as well, and that's history and snapshots. I do use the history quite a lot, but not together with snapshots. And the reason I don't tend to use them is that I use virtual copies a lot. Use the same image as the last one. If you right click, I assume people know this one, you come down and you create a virtual copy, which creates another copy that you could work on. It's not doubling up the original file. There's only still one file, but it's creating basically a new XMP type set of instructions to be associated with that raw image on that in the Lightroom catalog. But I use virtual copy when I'm planning to do some variations. Sometimes it doesn't. I don't plan it, and that's when history and snapshots come in. Now, history is obviously giving you a listing of all the actions you've undertaken, and you can go back and forward on that. So that's quite useful. But the trouble is with history is that you can lose it. So, for instance, if I just come back to this one here, and then I just do another action, so I just do another spot removal, then you'll notice that all of the previous history has now disappeared. So it has got restricted uses. That's when snapshots come into it. So again, I could come down here and I could say, right, I want to take a snapshot of this particular point in time. You can give it a name, but the default actually gives you the date and the time that it was created. So then you can come back up here. So that's a setting that you can come back to at any time. So if I come up here, let's go and revert it back to that snapshot. So say now I wanted to, for the sake of argument, convert this to black and white. So if I start playing around with this, okay, and then do a bit. Okay, I could say, right, I want to do a snapshot now, so I can do another one, and then maybe I just put in some strong contrast, and that's another one. Now you can come up here as I did previously and put a plus of snapshots. But the other way of doing it is actually you can come down to any element in your history, and if you right click, you get create snapshot. And the good thing about this one is it actually comes up with the action that you've rather than a date and a time. So then when you come in, you can actually come back. You've got a bit more of an idea of what you did. I tend to use this right click method rather than clicking on the plus. But I think it's if you found that you've run on and you've done a lot of stuff, experimentation, you want to go back to a previous state, and you haven't created a virtual copy, then this is quite a useful function, especially combining the history and the snapshots. Okay, the fifth and final one. Chances are most of you know this one already, but you never know. Might be one or two that find this a useful addition to their workflow. It concerns copying your processing from one photograph to another, or from one photograph to a group of other photographs. So we'll just do it individually to begin with. So say this one we did previously, I want this photo for the same processing. So if I select the one I want to change, go into the develop module as normal, but down here on the bottom right you've got reset and a previous. So if you click the previous button, what it's doing is applying the processing applications of the previous photo, or it's not the adjacent photograph, it's the one that you've just done. Um, so it's not its position that it's taking, it's the last processing exercise that you did. So that's just doing it for the one, but say I wanted to copy this processing to a number of shots. So make sure you're selecting the one that you want to take as the master processing, and then maybe just select a couple more. And this time you don't have to go into develop module, you can come straight down here to the bottom right and sync settings. And you have all of these potential processing modes to copy over. You can check them all or check none. Certainly you have to be aware that if you're applying it to photographs with different view and the camera's changed, then these local adjustments you might have done won't be applying in the same place. And also cropping and transformations might not apply from one to the next. But anyway, these are sort of standard things that I would synchronize across. Um, there you go. You see these ones will take us time to chug through. But I tend to use this if I've taken a series of shots, maybe different focal lengths, and I want to have a quick look to see how they all look before I take the processing a lot further. I would do a quick processing on one and then synchronize them across many of the others just to see what it looks like as a first step. You can always go back to your history and come back to the import side of it, but it's a useful way of covering uh, very quickly a number of photographs as a good starting point on your processing. That's it. That's the 5. Hopefully some of those are new to you and will be of use. They're not mind-blowing, but it's surprising how much I use them and how much time it saves in my workflow.